It's baseball season down in Port Charlotte. Mark Tompkin is down there. We're ready for Rays baseball. Talk a little Junior Caminero reporting and what they expect from him, as well as it's got some good pitching. Maybe the same hitting.
Pitching is good.
Pitching very, very good.
And they've got 6 starters fighting for 5 positions.
Okay, competition is good.
Yeah, that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
The bullpen looks great again, and they've had several additions as well.
Mm-hmm.
The hitting looks the same, but they're expecting a big turnaround.
Don't know why. It's the same guys, basically, plus Junior Caminero, of course.
Yeah, well, Caminero for a whole season.
Yeah.
Ha-Sung Kim, you expect back mid-May,
September?
maybe?
Oh, okay. Okay, May. Okay.
Mid-May.
Mayday.
You're hoping Yandy Diaz can rebound.
Josh Lowe, Brandon Lau.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you right now, their success on offense will rise or fall with Josh Lowe and Brandon Lau. That's what I believe. Everybody else is going to do what they're supposed to do. Those are really the 2 wild cards, though, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, well, and Yandy Diaz, I think, is a huge one.
Well, but
he had a phenomenal 4 or 5 year stretch there.
Yeah.
Last year he fell off. Now, was that just a blip, or is that now he's 33 years old and not going to be as good as he's been in the past?
Well, and Yandy strikes me as that guy that is like a I don't want to make predictions here, but if I was, he's that guy that's the is there a trade deadline in baseball? I don't know if there is or not.
Yes, there is. It's usually the end of July?
Okay, so he's that end of July trade deadline. You need a veteran presence. Probably not going to make a difference in your lineup one way or the other. You're willing to sacrifice Yandy, let him go to a contender for some really good prospects and maybe one major leaguer. Like he's in the perfect trade mode right now, right? That's just how it feels to me. And I don't know who would play first base or any of that.
Well, you've got, could Christopher Morel play there? Brandon Lau had played a little bit there last year.
I mean, you'd have a first baseman. I mean, they'd find somebody, but like you're not going to squeeze a lot of blood out of that turnip at this point. I mean, you mentioned he was 31 or going to be 31.
33, I think, this year.
Now, I think, what you would lose is some of the leadership in the clubhouse and all of that.
And in a perfect world, if you're trading Yandy, Jonathan Aranda is playing first base.
There you go. Yes. And Jonathan Aranda is going to be their primary DH against right-handers, at least, because, left-handed bat. He could, like, as you mentioned, he could play first.
Yeah, I mean, the offense, what they're hoping for is Jonathan Aranda finally arrives.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Lau stays healthy.
Right.
Josh Lowe rebounds. Yandy Diaz rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Morel shows anything.
Starts hitting pop. Like, he showed home run power, and he didn't when he got here.
Right. But, I mean, he was a big disappointment for the second half of last season when they got him. Now, they've liked him for years. You're hoping that with an off season and he's here and the Rays working with him, that they're going to, exploit the good things they see in him that's going to develop into a good hitter, which the Rays have done over time with hitters. So if all those things can happen, you got Danny Jansen behind the plate.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's not a small thing, right? I mean, you could get 15, 20 home runs out of that guy, perhaps.
Well, you could, but just remember, the 3 other top 4 home run hitters from last year are no longer on the team. Randy Arozarena, Isaac Paredes, and Jose Siri. The acquisitions, Jansen, Eloy Jimenez, and Ha-Sung Kim, averaged 9 home runs each last year.
So you're saying they're not going the right direction with the long ball?
Well, unless you think that, Ha-Sung Kim had shoulder surgery and that affects some things.
Caminero, Lowe, all that. Yeah.
Danny Jansen, quite frankly, a catcher, any offense you get is good.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of the Rays way, isn't it?
Can Taylor Walls show any offense?
No.
Until Kim is supposed to be the shortstop once he gets back, but until then it's going to be Caballero and Taylor Walls sharing it most likely.
You can't talk about Taylor Walls without talking about his defense, okay? Because there's not a lot to talk about with a bat, but his defense is really, really good.
So they're hoping. I mean, in 2000, what was it? John Romano wrote the column. It was really good about 2022. They didn't have a very good offense. They didn't make a lot of changes. In 23, they rebounded. They bounced back at like they had hoped and expected.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think 2024 was indicative of the lineup they had. They think this lineup's going to, get better.
Yeah. Well, that's one approach.
And they are pretty sure their pitching's going to be really good. I mean, the thing is, the Rays don't have to be the best offensive team in baseball.
No.
Middle of the pack, you're going to be okay with that pitching staff.
You score 3.5, 4 runs a game, you're going to get a chance to win every game. I mean, that's sort of what you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
And they could certainly do that. Look, though, they're going to be in it somehow. The AL East looks pretty daunting as usual. It's going to be pitching, and they're pitching. If you got guys like Shane McClanahan, like how do those guys respond to the Tommy John and coming back, and all of that? But they certainly have 6 guys that are capable of starting a good bullpen.
Yep.
If they stay healthy, and that's always the thing with this team and their pitching staff in particular. If they can stay healthy, then they're going to give. You're going to run 4 or 5 guys out there every week that have a chance to win, and a bullpen that can close it out. So, yeah, it's going to be about defense. It's going to be about
and it's going to be they were lowest in baseball last year with runners in scoring position.
Yeah,
batted .212.
Oh, it was brutal. I mean, Rosarina and Yandy didn't do anything the whole first half of the season.
The league average for getting a runner home from third base with less than 2 outs was 51.2%. The Rays were last at 44.9.
Woof.
Third base, less than 2 outs. They couldn't even get it home half the time.
That's not good.
You got to think that's. I mean, it's not like they have a bunch of guys who can't hit. Maybe Taylor Walls, but beyond that, but they're not. They're not Aaron Judge. They're not guys like that. But they should be hitting better as a collective than they did last year.
Right.
In those situations, and maybe it's just one of those years. That's what the Rays are kind of hoping for.
That's what they're banking on. Yeah, that's what they're banking on. That and a strong pitching staff, which is their DNA, and it doesn't require that many runs to win games. And we'll see. I mean, you could have a Caminero step up and become a superstar in this league. Like he could. He has that ability. So whether he can do it for 162 games and who stays healthy,
if he can get hot early. I mean, if you remember last year, Rosarena and Yandy Diaz were putrid the first
cold
month
as they could be. Yeah, ice cold. Yeah.
I mean, it was hard to watch.
But a year before that, they were on fire. Randy came off the World Classic, and him and Yandy, they were bashing their way. I think they had a gazillion home runs the first half of the
season.
Started
13-0.
13-0. So maybe it's every other year with this team. We'll see. But the Rays are they're in spring training, man. They check out Mark Tompkins' story in the Tampa Bay Times, TampaBay.com. Talk to Kevin Cash.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have Mark on tomorrow's podcast. So.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get all the answers. We don't have to speculate. Mark's in his 47th year of covering baseball, I believe.
Covered baseball before Tampa Bay had a baseball team.
He's been doing this. He did cover baseball for a long time before Tampa Bay had
I wasn't kidding.
Look, both of us started. I started 2 months before Mark. When I don't even want to tell you what year that was. Suffice to say, when I started and he started, it was about 12 years before there was a baseball team in Tampa. Okay. So he covered baseball before baseball was anywhere near here. It was spring training, and that was it. And then there was about an
spring training and a bunch of teams threatening to move here.
Yes. And he covered every one of those. And the St. Petersburg built new stadiums in San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago. I was part of the White Sox thing, by the way. I got sucked into that. I was working in Pasco when we used to have bureaus, and we had a Pasco bureau, and I was the sports editor of the Pasco bureau, which I don't know if you've been to Pasco. They have some really great high schools, but it's a big, long county that goes from the water all the way inland, like way inland, like Zephyr Hills. And so I was on the road a lot, but nonetheless, I got a chance, and I think it was, if memory strikes, it's a long time ago, but if memory serves, I think Mark got sick, and the White Sox were all but moved to St. Petersburg. Like, they were not going to rebuild Comiskey. They were coming to St. Petersburg. This is about the third flirtation, or team threatening to leave, and they'd already built stadiums, I think, at that point for the Twins and maybe the Giants. I don't know, but because Mark couldn't go, it's like, hey, can you get on a plane tomorrow? Can you go do a series up in Chicago? Like, okay. And this is before I met my wife. Before I really, I've been to Chicago very few times, and the south side of Chicago is much different than the north side. Okay, like back in the day where Comiskey was, it's like, hey man, careful which drive-through you go to after the game. Okay, and so I go there, and like this ball club, my job was to cover the weekend series. I don't know, they're playing like Milwaukee or somebody, but my job was to go to Old Comiskey and just talk about what kind of ball club is St. Petersburg getting. Okay, we've talked about the franchise moving and all that, but who are these guys? And they had a pretty good team, as memory serves. Jim Fregosi was the manager.
Wow.
Yeah, Ozzie Guillen, my buddy, my pal, was the shortstop. I think they might have had, gosh, if memory serves, maybe Bobby Thigpen was on that team.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
He was one guy I knew from college because I played against him, I think, or played just before him, or maybe with him. And so, I'm just interloper. I don't cover baseball. And if you know anything about baseball writers, how do we get on this tangent? But it's fun. It's our podcast. We can do whatever we want. If you know anything about baseball writers, they're very curious people. Okay. Like more curious than the NFL. So when a baseball writer sees somebody he's not sure of because he's not technically another baseball writer, they will approach them and say, hey, where are you from? What are you doing? What are you writing about? Now, this is back in the day when, everything was a note in the Chicago Sun-Times or the Tribune, right? And I'm like, just here from St. Petersburg Times. At the time, we were called the St. Petersburg Times. So they sent you up here to find out what exactly? Well, just watch the series and write about the team. And man, I was a note the next day.
Oh, I'm sure you were
in both newspapers, right?
Yep.
And so, God bless him. Can't thank him enough for this. So I don't know anybody, and we're down there around the cages, batting practice and all of that. And I'm like, this is like a really big weekend here. I got to come back with something about this baseball team. So the curious players who knew everything about everything, in terms of like the team leaving and stuff like that, the word got around. I'm standing around the batting cage. This is back when you could stand behind the cage, where they're hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And
you
Ozzie
still can today. You still can today.
You still can. Ozzie Guillen walks up to me. Just walks up. Hey man, Ozzie Guillen, how are you? I was like, good. I'm good, Ozzie. Good, Hey, you got a few minutes? Oh yeah, man. Whatever you want, And I'm like, so there's been a lot of talk about this team moving to St. Peter. Oh yeah, I tell you, we're all excited. I'm like, what? Yeah, man, I love it down there. I've been down there a lot for spring training and different, and actually they hadn't been to spring training because they were in Arizona, I think, at the time. But he's just like, I know people that are on the beaches, and it would be a great place for baseball, and they love their baseball down there. We're actually hoping this happens. I was like, this is gold, man. I got Ozzie Guillen just going off on, we can't wait to move, right? And he goes, hey, have you met Skip? I go, excuse me, who? he goes, Skip, hey, Jim, you met Jim Fregosi? Yeah, let me take you in his office, man. This is unbelievable. Takes me into the clubhouse, walks me into Fregosi's office. Fregosi's there, making a lineup card or some damn thing, or eating dinner. And if you know anything, Jim was an unbelievable character in baseball, and he was just a great guy to deal with on a day-to-day basis as a manager. Couldn't have been nicer, Yeah, our focus is just, trying to win, and we can't really worry about that. But I'm telling you, in about 30 minutes, I walked out of there going, I am the man. I walked into a bunch of gracious players, knew everything about everything, Didn't mind talking about the moving to St. Petersburg. Like, it was great. Of course, they didn't come, and St. Petersburg wound up building New Comiskey Park, as it turned out, whatever it's called now on the south side. I don't know who sponsors them now, what the naming rights are. But that was one memorable weekend. And then we brought a photographer with me. I wasn't alone. And after the game, not knowing Chicago, I just happened to see like a Burger King sign. Right, I'm hungry. It's late. There's nothing open. Let's do the drive-through. What could happen? So we stop in the drive-through, and it being the south side of Chicago, man, some dude walks up to the opposite side of the driver's window and starts knocking on the window. And I'm like telling my like, don't roll it down, man. Whatever you do, rolls the window down. It's a dude with a trench coat. Basically, he opens it up, and he's selling gold watches, chains, anything you want. Hey, man, you want it? I got gold. I got watches. I got chains. It's like, no, man. I just want a burger. I just want a Whopper and fries. I'm good. I'm going to talk to this side of the window now. it was a crazy weekend, man. But yeah, that's my visit to Chicago story. So,
by the way, the White Sox were training in Sarasota during that time.
Oh, there you go. So they were
yeah.
There you go. That's why they were so familiar with why they're so familiar with the Tampa Bay area
and Payne Park.
Payne Park. I played at Payne Park
in
high school. Yeah, that's a great thing about growing up here in the greater Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, Clearwater area was, our games were played after the teams would leave and go up north. Our games were all played in those stadiums. Grant Field in Dunedin, it was called at the time. Clearwater, I forget what they called it, but it's basically where Bright House Field is now.
Baycare Ballpark now, isn't it?
Yeah, Alling Stadium, Sarasota, Bradenton.
Smith, yep.
I think Bradenton was McKechnie. Is that right? Is that what it was called originally?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So we got to play. Those were where our high school games were, and our junior college games, and all that. So it was great because you were playing on major league quality fields, and so that was the beauty of growing up in baseball. And where I grew up in the greater Northwest St. Petersburg area in Tyrone, and that area was the Payson complex, and that's where the New York Mets trained, and I could walk there from my house. And
the Mets have been in Port St. Lucie forever.
They've been there, but they weren't. They have been now, but I mean, forever it was the Cardinals and the Mets in St. Petersburg.
All right,
forever. And Joan Payson, it was named after Joan Payson, who I think was the late owner's wife, way back in the day. And the complex is still there, and we played winter ball there all the time. Our winter league games were there. There was 4 fields, and yeah. So
the Mets left in '88.
'88. Okay, so we would go there, and when they would leave, we'd hop the fence, and we'd get in the batting cages or the the little thing they put at home plate, and we'd throw to each other. And there were times where you could sit outside the fences, which was just a big park outside the fences. And if they hit it over, there was a fence, and there was about 7 feet and another fence. If it hit it over both fences, the baseball would roll out into a park. We just I got all my batting practice balls, and so yeah, it was easy. But yeah, that was our fields. Those were our fields that they would use in the spring, and then when they would leave, then all our youth league teams, American Legion teams, winter ball teams would all play there. So it was great. I mean, baseball, when you think about the Tampa Bay area, it is ingrained with, stories going all the way back to the Yankees with Babe Ruth staying at Jungle Prada off of Park Street, and all of that in St. Petersburg. So Miller Huggins Field on 4th Street, there's just so much history down there that we were all part of. Somehow we got on this topic. We were talking about Junior Caminero. But yeah, it's spring training, man, the beginning of baseball, it now buttresses up literally to the very end of the NFL season, with Super Bowl dragging out this late as it is, and may even drag out later. But I'm glad it's here, because the one thing about baseball is it's like every day, right? Like you live this. You can come home and most nights there's a game on, or in the afternoon. It's great. I'm excited for it. I really am. I think spring training is a little too long though. I don't know how they could
Especially now
shorten.
that starters aren't going 8-9 innings.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't think
you don't need to lengthen pitchers out for 7-8 weeks, whatever it is.
Yeah. Now, do the clubs make money on spring training? Like, I never understood. Like, is this? There was a time in the NFL where the only times the clubs made money was preseason football because they could keep all the revenue, and the Pittsburgh Steelers were in demand everywhere. And if they went on the road, they got some kind of revenue share. But they would play. That's back when they played 6 preseason games, and they play like 4 of them at home and sell out. The Three Rivers or wherever they played at the time, and they would make all the money. I don't know how spring training works. I don't know, like,
Well, I'm sure some teams do, and some teams end up losing money on it. I mean, it depends on your ticket sales, and I mean, you got to pay the players and everything else that goes into it. But
Yeah.
it's how many tickets do you sell?
Yeah.
And for most teams, you're a long way from home,
Right.
so you're putting up, even your staff in hotels, and almost every team's that way. I mean, the Rays probably are too, I'm sure.
Yeah, in Port Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah, so whether they make or lose or money, I mean, the hard part about baseball is you don't see their books. There's no rev share plan.
No.
Or overarching rev share like there is in the other leagues.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some teams maybe they do, other teams don't. How much are you paying to use your facility? Or do you own the facility? All that stuff goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different. It's certainly different than football. But I actually I enjoy the spring training part of it because of just the players aren't stressed. The downside is, early in spring training, you may see one of your guys that you like that get one at bat, and then he's out of the game, or a guy throws,
Mm-hmm.
1 inning at the most, and that sort of thing. But what's great about it is it's just, the players are relaxed. They're usually available to fans. The weather can't be better, right? I mean, you're talking about March,
Yep.
late February, March in Florida. It doesn't get any better than that. And yeah, it's just a different vibe. Like, it's really cool vibe to go to a spring training game, and we're just coming out of winter, and the snowbirds are down from Philadelphia, from all over the New York or all over the place, and so that's kind of cool. So I do enjoy it, and it's relaxing when you cover the teams. Nobody's really stressed because you haven't played a game yet that's going to count. So everybody's kind of working through things.
Well, it's also daytime, so deadlines or anything.
Yeah, and usually you come in. I'm going to make this sound easy. It's not. Mark's going to kill us when we talk to him, but like, you come in and they start very early. The clubhouse is open, I don't know, 8:30, 9 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah, usually it's early.
Yeah, and so you get your interviews, and you do, you're doing your stories. If you're talking to, say, Junior Caminero or somebody like that, and then you get all your reporting done. You head on up to the press box. They play the game, which is insignificant to a degree. Might be a couple innings. You're writing about some guy that
Mm-hmm.
starting pitcher that pitched 3 innings, or a guy that got 2 at bats or something like that. The game story is not the thing. It doesn't really matter. It might be a note, but the whole time you're watching the game, you're banging out your daily of whatever you dragged out of the clubhouse, as a story. But it's a long day. You start very early.
Yep.
You get done late at night, and if you get dinner by the time you do that, it's like 8:30, 9, 10 o'clock, and you're doing it all over again.
The weird part about spring training too is, like, the starting pitcher will go, say, 2 innings.
Yeah.
And then they'll make an announcement. The starting pitcher is available in the clubhouse in 5 minutes. So you actually, all the writers leave the press box during the game and go talk to the starting pitcher.
Great. Yeah. So, which one of those 12 pitches did you like?
Yeah.
Like,
but then they come back up. It's like, okay, what did we miss? What happened? Wait a minute. There's about 4 runs scored. What happened here?
Exactly.
Because they were down in the clubhouse talking to starting pitcher or whatever.
But also, like, what is he going to say after he threw 18 pitches in 2 innings, right? Like, I thought I had pretty good command of the fastball. Really was kind of working on my slider a little bit.
Well, it depends. If it's a guy like Shane McClanahan who hasn't pitched in a game since 2023.
Oh, yeah. How'd you feel?
That's that's different. If it's just a regular starting pitcher stretching out, I thought I had good stuff today, whatever. It's the cliches. But
you know what? I was filling up the strike zone, but they hit me pretty hard. But all I was trying to work on was just throwing strikes and, being able to command the pitch. It's like, I don't care that I gave up 2 home runs, It's funny. And that's the nature of baseball. You can't get too high or too low. Like, It's so different from football because
Yeah.
everything in football is crisis or carnival, right? Like if you lose, oh my God, you're never going to win a game. And one game is equal to, you know, 17 Major League Baseball games. And if you win, well, by God, you're going to the Super Bowl. So there's no in
Yep.
between in football. You pour everything into it 100 hours a week, and you go out there for 3 hours, and oh my gosh, the reaction, the overreaction that you get on Monday morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like it. Baseball is like everybody's chill. Hey, you guys just got beat 14-2. Like, that's terrible, right? Like, you must feel awful. What? No, we get them tomorrow. It's like, no, I don't care.
Yeah.
There's 162 of these. You think we're gonna go crazy tonight? No, we don't care.
The
We'll
other
get
thing I
them
love
tomorrow.
about spring training is when whether television broadcast or even if you listen to the radio, you get the chyron of minor league guy because
Yeah.
they don't
They
know who
don't
the
know
guy
his
is. It's just
yeah.
number 82. We don't
Yeah.
know who he is, so we just put minor league guy.
Minor league guy. Yeah. You always tell the
And the
minor
radio
league
announcers
guys.
are like, "We're not sure who's pitching to right now."
That's right. He's not on the email roster, so we don't know. Yeah, and the numbers are funny too. You see anybody you see with like 70, 65,
Yep.
Probably one of the lower rung minor league guys that they got in the organization. Anyway, so baseball's here. It's back. It's great. We're going to talk to Mark Tompkin later this week, hopefully. Before we get into a little bit of football and kind of some email questions, actually, one in particular, I want to tell you guys to get on down to the Breitling Boutique in International Plaza Mall. If you haven't been there, you need to go. What's stopping you? It's in the center of the mall upstairs. Terrific store, and the customer service is second to none. Look, they're used to dealing with celebrities, with NFL football players, boxers, you name it. And you're probably going to see a Buccaneer or two in there from time to time, but they're going to treat you like you're the best customer in the world. And that's a fact. Now, right now, if you go into Breitling Boutique, they're celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary with a limited edition of the team watches. All 32 teams represented with their Chronomat watches. That's their signature watch. When you see these things, they're absolutely gorgeous. They're going to have the color of the team on the face of the watch itself, as well as the logo. These are collector's items. These are gorgeous watches, and you're going to love them. And then also, you know what? Maybe you want to get on down there and get I don't know, Valentine's gift for your loved one, maybe your wife, your girlfriend. They have women's watches as well, sports watches that she's going to love. If they're on the go, like my wife is, kind of banging them around a little bit, that's fine. These are durable watches. They're absolutely gorgeous. All kinds of colored wristbands. You can pick those out as well. Get on down. Get on down to the Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Check out the NFL collection as well as the watches for your wife or girlfriend. And make sure you let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day, Tampa Bay. All right, so I got this mailbag question. And we get these all the time. We want you to send mailbag questions. We'll tell you how you can do that in just a second. And I think this is, AJ, who's obviously a Bucks and Bulls fan based on his timeline. He says, he wrote to me on X or Twitter, as the kids used to call it. Listening to your podcast this morning, love it. Thank you. If he'd have just stopped there, Steve. If he'd have just stopped there, he says, please explain the logic. And I guess he's saying this is what he heard from our podcast the other night. Make fun of people who think Bowles is not the answer. Cite Gruden as an example as working for Bucks. Say defense is keeping us from being title contenders. Who is running the defense? Who is the head coach? All right. Let's break this down. I didn't take offense to it. I just thought it was curious.
Mm-hmm.
So he gives us a compliment, which we appreciate that. First of all, we appreciate you, AJ, for listening each and every day, as we know you do. You're obviously a Bucks and USF follower, which is great. And you do love the podcast, so thank you for that. The logic, however, make fun of people who think Bowles is not the answer. I don't recall you and me like making fun of those who think Bowles is not the answer. I mean, I understand that sentiment. I don't necessarily agree with it. And oh, by the way, neither does the ownership. But there is a universe where if the Bucks had missed the playoffs, if they had lost the last 2 games of the regular season instead of winning them, that maybe Bowles is out and Liam Cohen's the head coach. I really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a scenario that might have occurred, but you know what? It didn't. It didn't occur. And I don't make fun of people who think Bowles is not the answer. I don't necessarily agree with you.
I think I might have made a flippant comment about it.
Did you?
And not in
So
making
it was
fun of, not
you.
making it probably was. I mean, I like
I
to
took
just
it
make
personally.
I like to make flippant comments about anybody who's so hardcore to one thing. Like, I mean, could you make a case to get rid of Todd Bowles and kept Liam Cohen or hired somebody else?
Yes.
And we cited that the Bucks have done that in the past with John Gruden, with Tony Dungy, who had made the playoffs.
Yes.
Before. Now, Dungy hadn't won 3 straight divisional championships, but he was making the playoffs and they made the change. And we cited that as an example of when they've done that in the past.
Yeah, and I'm telling you right now, if they don't win the last 2 games against Carolina and New Orleans, and they ended up with 8 wins instead of 10, and they don't win the division, Liam Cohen's probably your head coach right now.
I absolutely could see that have happened. No question about it.
I mean, you might have had Bowles retire. He may have been fired. He may have just stepped aside. But I think Liam Cohen would have been the coach. But that's not what happened, right? So please explain your logic. So we're not making fun of people who think Bowles is not the answer. I happen to think.
I think I made a flippant comment, like I said.
Yeah,
because I like to do that.
But in general, I still think that he has earned the right to coach this season. We'll see what happens after that. But when you win 4 NFC South championship, you've earned that right. Cite Gruden as an example as working for the Bucks. Well, it did work. I mean, unfortunately for Tony Dungy, who made the playoffs 4 out of 6 years, and if you see what Dungy had when he arrived in terms of an entire team, like they had drafted Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp. No, they did not play in the right positions as rookies. But that was a rebuild for Tony, and Tony got him so far, and then John came in and finished the deal, and that did work until it didn't. And John eventually was fired himself when it was like 3 weeks after a season. It was shocking to everybody, but they decided to move on. He also said the defense is keeping us from being title contenders. Yeah, I think so. You just had an offense that finished in the top 3 in terms of rushing offense, top 1 or 2, I think, in scoring offense. Baker Mayfield had an unbelievable year with 41 touchdowns, completed like over 71% of his passes, 4,500 yards, passing yards. So he did his job, to say the very least. And I think this team needs some help on defense, but offensively they did a good job. And yeah, Gruden was an example of how it worked for the Bucks because he won a championship. Defense, the other part is defense is keeping us from being title contenders. Yeah, it did. It has, and it did.
It did for lots of reasons. I mean, in part, some of it injury related.
Yeah.
So not all of it, but some of it.
A good part of it.
Yeah, I think the pass rush is still a problem. Healthy or not.
No question.
But I think, Antoine Winfield Jr. was not himself. I think Servassier Dennis will make the middle linebackers much better.
Yeah. Jordan Whitehead had a bad year and got in the car accident.
I mean, Jamel Dean was hurt. You had McCallum miss some games. I mean, Tyke Smith missed games. Like there was a lot of injury problems. So I don't know how much you put that on coaching.
Look, it's about players, not plays. I mean, the coaching matters in this league. It absolutely matters. And some guys can take yours and win, and you can take theirs and lose. But there are coaches that that do matter. And do I think the defense is keeping you from being a title contender? Perhaps, at least last year. And he says, and I guess this is his point, well, who's running the defense? And who is the head coach? Todd Bowles does run the defense, and he is the head coach. And I think, while their defense slipped last year, if you look at them since he arrived with Bruce Arians, it's been very consistent and dominant even at times. I mean, everybody's talking about, how badly the Philadelphia Eagles just beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Well, let me direct you back to, Super Bowl 55 when they were all over Patrick Mahomes and rushed him unmercifully with 4 down linemen. And, I think he ran 500 miles that day or 500 yards that day all over the field trying to escape pressure. So this is not a template, where you rush 4 and cover 7 that hasn't been used before. And so the Bucs, they deserve all the accolades for what they did. And the guy running that defense was Todd Bowles, the same guy that's running it now. And the insinuation there is, well, who was running the defense? Who's the head coach? Yeah, it's the same guy. But you know what he doesn't have? The same players. He doesn't have Shaq Barrett in his prime after a 19.5 sack season. He doesn't have Jason Pierre-Paul to get everybody in line, who was still productive enough to win a Super Bowl and get after Aaron Rodgers as him and Joe. He combined with Shaq for 5 sacks against Aaron Rodgers in that championship game. So look, they're not a complete team.
Well, let's not forget too, this team went from under Todd Bowles last year with Tom Brady as one of the oldest teams in the league
to the second or third
to one of the youngest teams in the league, while still winning a division championship every year.
Right. Thread the needle. Hard to do. Incredibly hard to do. Atlanta's been rebuilding forever. Carolina as well. New Orleans is stuck in neutral. And you got one team that, drafted and developed and won and, won the division for the 4th straight year. So something's going on that's right. It's easy to pick out maybe some of the things that aren't going well. Todd Bowles is running the defense. Yes, he's a head coach. If you think he should leave, I don't see any evidence of that. I mean, I think the guy still calls a good game. I think he's missing
time
some
management
parts.
could use some.
Oh, as a head coach now, that's totally different, But from a defensive standpoint, I think he's got a good bend, don't break philosophy. Needs some difference makers on defense. Needs to get Antoine Winfield Jr. healthy again. Needs to find that edge rusher that's been elusive for them. But overall, he's a winner, and the proof is there. So if you want to blame his defense, also credit him for allowing Patrick Mahomes no touchdowns in the Super Bowl that they won. Everybody's talking about how dominant Philadelphia was. Oh my God, I'm so surprised Philadelphia was just so dominant that Kansas City couldn't do anything. Hello, as good as it was, on Sunday in the Super Bowl, consider back in 2020 season, 2021 Super Bowl, that the Bucs didn't give up anything on defense. I mean, they didn't give up a touchdown. They were more dominant than this, current one that Mahomes just stunk up the joint against Philadelphia. The Bucs were more dominant than the Eagles. So that was Todd Bowles' defense. That was his deal. And you can't divorce the two. You just can't. They don't have the same players. They got to add to them. We know where the holes are. But make it make sense. Yeah, I can make it make sense. The head coach is your defensive coordinator. No question about it. But he needs players. He needs players, not just plays. His plays are fine. You'd like to not have to blitz. You'd like to do exactly what they did against Kansas City in the Super Bowl and exactly what happened on Sunday night with Philadelphia, where you rush 4, drop 7, and they've only got 5 eligible, which gives you a 2-man advantage. Football is math in so many ways. And you know what? The Eagles had the advantage, and so did the Bucs when they played them back in Super Bowl 55. So they gave the template, and that template was Todd Bowles' creation. So again, everybody wants to fire the coach. Change the coach, change the quarterback. That's what the losing teams in this league do all the time. But I think they've got stability, and now we'll see, if they're able to push it to the next level with some continuity on offense, with the same system going, it's going to be different for them. And they've got to add some pieces, no question about it. They got a lot additions that they got to make at the outside linebacker spot, pass rush, and maybe another corner. Certainly an inside linebacker. If they get Dennis back, that will help. Whether Levante has another year in him or not, who knows? But they got to get better. But if they do, they're going to be right in it. They're going to be right in it because the NFC South is not a great division yet. I think Michael Penix Jr. will do a good job with Atlanta. I don't know what Derek Carr is going to do. They just got a new head coach in Kellen Moore, who's a very offensive guy. I think he'll be successful as a head coach. But the Bucs window is there. It's there to take advantage of. So we'll see if they're able to do it. So we'll talk more Rays baseball tomorrow with Mark Tompkin of the Tampa Bay Times down in Port Charlotte for the spring training that has begun. And that'll be fun to catch up with him.
If you're looking for some hockey, Four Nations face-off starts tonight, Canada versus Sweden. So you've got
John Cooper coaching Canada, right?
Yep, with Braden Point, Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli on that team, and, of course, Victor Hedman on Team Sweden. So that starts tonight. Team USA plays tomorrow night against Finland.
Nice. Who's favored? Canada, right?
I think so, although their goaltending may be a little more questionable than some of the other teams. But, I mean, their first power play units like McKinnon, Makar, Sid Crosby.
That's crazy.
It's just, some of the talent, the top-line talent they can put out there is just crazy.
Yeah. U.S. got a chance to finish well in this at all? Not
yeah,
fourth?
I think so. I think they may have the best D-core.
Okay.
Yeah. It should be a fun tournament. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
Watch.
Yeah.
I'll watch. It's not, 100 teams. It's just 4, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so what else we got? Yeah, we got Rays baseball, of course, throughout. Mark Tompkin coming up.
NASCAR Daytona 500s this weekend. So
that's this weekend. Yeah, we got to go. Love the way the car. Hate it for the crew. Car run good. All that stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Spring is cool down here, man. You're going to have St. Pete Grand Prix before you know it. Valspar before you know it, right?
Absolutely. Spring training games, of course, all over the place.
Yeah. Weather is going to be 85 tomorrow. What the hell is going on, man? 85, really?
Yeah.
We're like in the middle of February. Not even. Jeez. I'll tell you what, man. It's going to be hard out there at Steinbrenner Field. It's going to be really hot. Get ready. I wonder how people are going to react to that, too. I mean, I grew up here, but and of course they're playing most of their.
Well, the April games are going to be beautiful.
Oh, they're going to be gorgeous. But in the summer, they're going to be on the road anyway for the most part. We chronicled that the other day on the podcast. But man, there's still going to be some nights where it's just air's not going to be moving. You think the sun goes down and everything's cool? No, it's not. No, it's not, man. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be heavy out there. Some rain delays. It's going to be wild. But I'm excited for him. I still think outdoor baseball is a big deal. And it's in Tampa, which is closer to my house. So I'm grateful for that. But I
expect to see you there more often than.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, man. Why not? I can't afford the tickets, but why not? Might have to get a press pass and run notes for Mark or something. I don't know how I'm going to get down there. I'll get down there. For sure. So thanks for listening. As always, go see our friends at Breitling Boutique. Look, this is a great place. If you're looking still for a Valentine's gift, go on down there. They have watches for men, for women. They're celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary. 32 teams represented with their team watches, beautiful chronomats. They got the Navatimers, all that. And make sure when you go, you let them know that you heard about all of this on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Thanks for listening. For Steve Burstick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.